everybody, it's Brian Asbury, and I just wanted to welcome you to today's episode. If you could, like today's episode, hit that subscribe button, and let's continue to grow the developmentally speaking brand. Today, my guest is former NXT UK superstar, Mr. Amir Jordan. How are you, sir?
Hello, sir. Hello. Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Good, can't complain. Winter's finally here. It snowed this morning, so
Whereabouts are you based?
I'm in Indiana.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it'll
I'm
be cold there, right?
Yes. It can be hot today, it can be cold
Midwest.
tomorrow. Yeah, unfortunately, you never know how it's going to be.
On my Canada trip, I got myself down as close to, I know it's not that close, but I got myself down to Windsor, which is probably about as close to Indiana as you can get there in Canada, and it was pretty cold. It started getting pretty cold in October time whilst I was coming back, so yeah. It's not too cold here, it's not as cold.
Good, good. So I'm going to ask you a question you've probably been asked a million times. What made you want to get into professional wrestling?
Well, I started watching it with my granddad when I was 9 years old. And to be honest with you, it was the performance aspect of it, the lights, camera, action, the music was a massive thing for me. Like I love the music. Like most of my music taste is based upon more or less wrestling, wrestling themes and stuff like that. So yeah, to be honest with you, when I was younger, it was the things that a kid would be into. Um, like watching The Rock, watching Stone Cold, and like the more sports entertainment aspect. But then as I became as I entered my nerdy teenage years, 15, 16, 17, and I discovered the internet, right? It was around about like I'm 33, so it would have been around 2005, 6, 7 time when like dirt sheets and all that stuff started getting in. So that's when I became a crazy super fan. So yeah, all of that, the stuff when I was young, mixed in with the stuff when I was a nerdy teenager, meant that yeah, I had a long way around to get in there, but yeah, it's all those things that made me really want to do this. And 7 years in now, and I'm happy to say I'm surviving just about.
What was the defining moment that made you say, all right, this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to pursue?
So I had a different path to a lot of people. So I had a career before this. I used to work in investment banking. So I got my degree and stuff, and I actually went out to New York and I worked for a large investment bank within like the operations section. So I had a pretty decent job. That led me to London, and I spent 2 years in London. So I'm from Yorkshire, so it was a good few hours down. But like, especially for banking in the UK, London is like the New York equivalent, right? That's where you go to make money. So yeah, it was good. I enjoyed that life, but it just wasn't, it wasn't for me. I needed something a little bit more exciting in my life, clearly, because as 25 sat in the office thinking, well, is this it? I guess I'll make money and it'll be good. But yeah, I probably would have made a lot more money doing another line of work. But one thing I knew at that point was I wasn't happy. And at like 24, 25 years old, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to do about something about this now. So it all led me. I had two choices. I thought I'll either take a year out and because I had a bit of money saved up, so I thought I'll take a year out and go on around the world trip because I like to travel.
Hmm.
I was either that or I was like, all right, let me try this thing that I've always wanted to do since I was 17, 18 years old. But because in my family there's very strong on like studying and we're quite traditional as well, so it was never really a thing that I could openly do. I almost feel like I had to do something first, something else, kind of keep my parents at bay and be like, right, I've done this, now I can go off and do it. So yeah, I thought if I could be successful in something that I don't have a passion for, let's see what I can do with something that I actually care about, right?
Hmm. Absolutely. Where did you start
Yeah.
training at?
So I actually started training. So do you know Progress Wrestling?
Hmm.
So in 2015, I was living in London, and Progress Wrestling at the time they had a school in South London, and it was quite a good school, and that's where I kind of started my training for the first 5 or 6 months. I was actually waiting during that time to go out to Lance Storm School in Calgary in 2016. So whilst I was waiting, I got myself, got myself in the gym, got myself getting used to wearing contact lenses because I am really blind and I had this weird anxiety of like touching my eyes. So I had to I had to practice for hours because I realized that I wouldn't be able to wrestle if I can't, put my contact lenses in. So I'm out here dealing with my life fears, trying to, become a professional wrestler. And yeah, I had a little bit of money saved up from my banking and stuff, so I saved up as much money as I could, and I got myself out to the other side of the world. Basically, like I lived in New York and I travelled around a little bit, but like I had to go to Calgary in January, and it was like you were saying earlier, it was like minus 15, 16 degrees. It was ridiculously cold. And then going to train with someone like Lance as well can also be quite intimidating at the start as well. Um, and yeah, I just remember walking around at Gatwick Airport in London, waiting to go out for my flight to go train with Lance, and I was like, "What the hell have you done here?" Because I quit my job, right? Um, so I was kind of, for want of a better word, pooping it. Don't know how PG this is. But yeah, it was fight or flight, and I was like, well, you bought this flight now, it's costing you about £700, so you better go. And then yeah, I guess from there on, I never looked back. Like I'd had a match, I'd done a little bit of training, but I think it was the fact that I decided to go to the other side of the world that made me realize, all right, you're gonna have to like try your best at this and make something of it because you might be able to get something out of it in the end, and it works out pretty well.
Hmm. So how was training? Was it everything you thought it would be?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like I said, I'm a massive wrestling nerd. So I watched like the second I decided to like I wanted to become a wrestler, I got on and watched Tough Enough every single episode of Tough Enough again. I watched like Breaking Ground, just getting hold of anything that I could that had anything to do with wrestling and like wrestling training. So I kind of like immersed myself in the world. I've got a bit of an addictive personality as it is, so like I kind of got obsessed with it. And then so I was quite well prepared to know kind of what to expect. Obviously, I didn't expect how it would feel taking bumps at the start and running the ropes and all that stuff. It was horrible. Um, but like it kind of spurs you on because you feel almost alive. That like I don't know. I guess it was my version. Have you seen that movie Fight Club?
Hmm.
I know it's really silly. It's probably not the same, but like I was working, I was going to like my banking job during the day, and then in the evening I was like part of this little training group and this little fight club at Progress at this training school. I guess that was just kind of what it felt like in my own life to kind of like have this escape from the crazy world that I ended up in. Um, but yeah, like training at Lancers was really good because he had like a structure and he's one of the best technical wrestlers of all time anyway. So it was great to like have that basis and foundation to move on for the rest of my career. And it was weird, like a lot of the things that he taught, you only realize in retrospect after you've gotten a little bit of experience. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Hmm.
there's loads of things you talk about and you teach you at the time where you'd be like, oh, I don't understand this. And then years on later, something like that happens in your career on like an independent show or on TV or something, and then you're glad that you went out and paid the money to go, get trained by someone like that. So yeah, no, I actually met him just now in Canada actually. Out in Calgary, we went out for a coffee together, so it was awesome. Yeah, he's a really good trainer, and like it's good because you always have him available
Hmm.
wherever you are. He always, I can always send him matches, and he always gives me good feedback, very constructive feedback as well. Um, so yeah, no, I feel like because I got into wrestling as an adult, I was able to make a lot of adult decisions. I mean, I guess like this is all if this is developmentally speaking, like it's all
Hmm.
part of your development, right?
Hmm.
At an early stage, I was kind of glad that I got into wrestling as an adult because it meant that I wasn't naive to a lot of things. A lot of people can be naive to when they're younger, which then meant I was smart about saving my money. I was smart about going and training at the right place. And I kind of hit that level of maturity at 25 years old to be like, right, my thing was like take this as far as you can go because like this is your last chance of doing something like this because you don't want to regret it at 40.
Hmm.
And I was already like in my own head going to training sessions with like 18, 19-year-old like athletic kids being 25, 26.
Hmm.
um so that was a little mental battle as well coming up. So yeah, I can't remember what your question was. What was your question?
See, that's an issue here. Is someone will go to like a random school, get their two
Yeah,
weeks of training, and then they're a seasoned vet, and
absolutely.
then they're running the,
Hmm.
the towns, and that's a major issue. It's okay to take your time. You should take your time. You should go and train, but I think everybody gets they want to do it now, so they skip all these steps, and that's how you get hurt.
I mean, that's how you get hurt, but I mean, it's very similar to what happens here as well. And I just spent 3 months in Canada, and it's, a lot of these problems, it's actually quite interesting. The more you travel, the more you realize a lot of the same things
Hmm.
are, the same problems are similar in different scenes as well. And it's crazy, like the same, like, types of characters at training schools and the same types of character tropes at wrestling promotions and all that stuff are very similar across the world as well. And then it just makes you realize like wrestling attracts a certain type of people, and that makes it difficult for trainees as well because there's so many schools now
Hmm.
where you don't recognize who the trainer is or something like that. You've got to realize like there's an internet out there, and you know we should all do our research and try and go to the best place. So that thing I feel like a lot of it's just like, oh, I really want to be a wrestler and I really want to get that, which is great. Um, but wrestling is a show business sport,
Hmm.
and like it is, you got to be careful where you go and make sure you're getting trained by the right people as well.
Absolutely. Now, after you were done training, where did you start working at?
So I did a little bit on the indies out in Canada. So all the money that I saved up, I spent 3 months training at Lancers, and then I spent 3 months on the Indies out there. All of that money went within that 6 months because I wasn't working. I was just focusing on trying to be a wrestler and not realizing that the second you come out of training, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're going to start getting booked and you're going to start making a bunch of money, and it's just going to be like that. It's not. It is not like that at all. Especially I was out in Western Canada, and like things were so far apart and stuff. But ultimately, it was a great experience. I spent 3 months at training. I spent 3 months going out and getting experience on the small independent shows, and it was great to start my career out in a place like Western Canada, being from where I'm from and all that stuff. It was a very unique experience that I don't feel like a lot of people had, but like it gave me a really, like I said, that year training in London at the Progress School. Like I used to go to a lot of the Progress chapter shows as well. At the Electric Ballroom when it was really hot, when they had the likes of like Will Ospreay, Mark Haskins, Pete Dunne, Trent Seven, Tyler, but all these guys that were coming up on this, Jimmy Havoc coming up on the scene as like, the top guys on the independents in the world. And I was like skinny little me was there doing ring crew and stuff. So I got really good exposure as well.
Hmm.
And going out to Lancers, doing a little bit of training. So that first year really looking back at it now, I don't feel like I knew it that back then, but that first year really set me up to go out in the world and like take my chances because like it's not really setting you up for success because like wrestling's the kind of place where like there's your success is built upon so many different factors,
Hmm.
and because it's not a competitive endeavor, right? So a lot of your success is built on a lot of people's opinions or like the crowd reacting to you or all of that stuff. So it was that thing of it got me ready, and then I realized that the British wrestling scene at that time, so we're talking like mid 2016, that's when like Brit Rest was becoming a big thing, which obviously eventually led into NXT UK. Again, I guess it was smart moves at the time looking back at it. Um, so I decided like in the summertime to get myself back to the UK, um, and get myself out there. So like at that time, the scene was pretty much the best independent scene in the world. I got to come back to West Yorkshire and start training with the likes of Rampage Brown, Joe Connors, Marty Jones, and there was a bunch of really good wrestling schools around as well as opportunities to train and wrestle on shows and get experience. So I kind of did hit the ground running. I started doing like a lot of the camp shows, a lot of the smaller like resorts and camp shows as well. I just started getting my reps in and stuff. So like it was one of those things where the second I realised that I could do this, the second I got a little bit of positive feedback from like Lance or like people realise, oh, you're quite athletic or you move quite well, all that stuff. Those little bits of confidence is what get me going to make me realise, well, I might actually be able to make something of this. Whilst not realising at all that WWE would be in my horizon, because even at that point, as hot as the scene was, like no one knew that WWE was going to come and like get sign us all. Um, so yeah, it was almost like recognizing that something was going on and hitting that peak at the right time. I had my car, I got another job, so I had a little bit of money coming in, so I could invest. And that's kind of what I did. I was single at the time as well, so I was just investing all the money that I was making from my job and going to training, getting at the gym and stuff. And then like traveling to shows and like helping out, setting up chairs, setting up, helping setting up the ring, just a lot of the stuff that you use, just building from the ground up. And I turn up to shows, setting up the ring and helping out with chairs enough times where like the third or fourth time someone will be like, who are you? Who have you trained with? Oh yeah, and like we'll give you 3 minutes on the next show then, and then like from there on, if I do well in that 3 minutes, I'd get more, and like that's what got me to like places that are running really like massive promotions right now, like North Wrestling and NGW, and I ended up doing some stuff for Progress as well. Like we were just traveling. Like the UK is a very small country, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, there were shows running like 2016, 2017. All of those shows, there were shows running like 3 or 4 on Friday, 3 or 4 on Saturday, a couple on Sunday afternoon and stuff like. And I had quite a unique gimmick at the time as well that I was coming out to from JRBMC, and like I was I had like my entrance, and I put a lot of thought and a lot of effort into like my entrance, so that kind of became a little bit of a it kind of came a little bit of my unique selling point there, where as a very inexperienced wrestler, my wrestling was coming up as it that takes time, but it was my gimmick and my character that meant that I could keep getting booked and keep getting those opportunities to like increase my ability within the wrestling. So those first few years was definitely like really working on making sure the entrance is, hot, getting around the crowd, getting the crowd to pop. Do you know what I mean? And like, I realized that like if I put enough energy in my entrance, then before the bell rings, I can have the crowd, and then they
Mm-hmm.
can start easing into like see watching me. I kind of feel like British wrestling has watched me like come in from like probably not being a very good wrestler who had to rely on a character and a dancing gimmick and and a little shtick, which that's wrestling. That's what we all do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Doing that into like who I am now, which is like a season, a well trained, well seasoned wrestler who's come, who's had that TV experience, who and like I come out now, and to be honest with you, I don't even dance because like I'm just like everyone knows who I am, and like I can actually just come out and like hype the crowd and just be, just be energetic and just be over the top and get the crowd involved and stuff. And it's just, it's a very good place to be now.
Mm-hmm.
7 or 8 years in, I've done a really long answer to that question.
No, no, you're fine. You're fine. So you mentioned the British boom. Was it easy to just get work during that time? Because I'm like all eyes. It seemed like everything was
Do you
on
know
the
what?
UK at that time.
Yeah, like, do you know what it was? That you had to go out and get them, and that's another thing in wrestling. Talking about developing as a new wrestler, trying to get your name out there and stuff. You had to go out and get them, right? The opportunities were there. I spent so much time in my car spending 2 hours going to train with people. Like if I wasn't getting booked somewhere, and I feel like I guess that's where I'm glad that I've got that kind of attitude. If I'm not getting something somewhere, I'm really impatient. My wife says I've got really ADHD. I probably should go get it checked out. But regardless, if I've got it, I've got it. But like I find it really difficult to sit still, and if I'm not getting something from somewhere, I'll move to go get it. So like when I came back from Canada, um, and like when I came back from Canada, I was still quite, I could tell people I'd been trained at Progress. I could tell people I trained with Lance Storm, and I'm like, okay, well, we need to see you. In order to get those opportunities, you have to go out and get them. So if I wasn't getting booked, I realized, okay, if I'm not getting booked now, I need to get into cars with people, spend time on the road, help out at shows and all that stuff. And it was a very good environment for someone who was hustling to get it, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Um, and that's the kind of environment that I need. All I feel like I need as a performer is like the environment to be able to work hard, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And like hustle and get out there, and that's what Looking back at it now, like that period from mid 2016 all the way to getting signed by the WWE, that 2 years was, it was kind of the time of your life because it's kind of weird. I think I heard it's a quote from Paul Heyman, I think, but like I completely understand where he's coming from now. It's like you'll never have another time where you're getting yourself over for the first time, if that makes sense, right? Going from a complete unknown to like becoming known, and that come up and that progress that I made, it was so much fun because I went from literally being a no one in my like I'd achieved what I achieved as a normal person, but like I felt like I was on my way to like becoming something in wrestling, and like I never thought that I'd be someone who had people would say, oh, like he's a good wrestler. He's good. Like it was for me. It was just having one match or like trying to see how far I get. And now I'm at this point where I'm just like, okay, well the timing's really good. Got all these opportunities, and like it was, those 2 years were amazing. To be honest with you, the fact that I had something unique to provide.
Mm-hmm.
British wrestling at the time as well. And then we had like What Culture going on. We had Rey Mysterio, Alberto Del Rio, Kurt Angle's coming to the UK. It was you know what, like it was wild, man. There was a lot happening, and it was a lot of the international wrestlers were coming. But look at like the basis of the British. It was all built upon such a good foundation of good British wrestlers as well. Um, and that was good for me to be around, being in cards with the likes of Joe Connor's Rampage Brown, seeing someone like Pete Dunne do what that seeing that rise, and British strong style. A lot of the Scottish lads, the Welsh lads, like a bunch of the people that ended up becoming part of NXTUK were all part of building the scene. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It was very much so built upon British wrestlers. So it was crazy that like I kind of feel like I snuck into that group, but it was good. Again, it was good for me because like I wanted to, I had to do it double time because I started late, and
Mm-hmm.
I always felt like I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to do this doubly as quick because I'm 27, 28 now and all that stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, it ended up working out timing wise really well. But just traveling the whole of the UK and doing like we'd do doubles, we'd do like there was midweek shows. I remember this one time I did a stretch of like 17 shows in 18 days. That was a mixture of like it was a mixture of like camp shows, like the All Star or like the Butlin shows. NGW was running like the Butlin camps. Defiant was running like TV tapings on one day. There was like a Tuesday night Grat show on Tuesday. Milton Keynes IPW run on Thursday. Like it was really cool to be part of that. To be honest with you, and like traveling with a bunch of guys and being around a bunch of guys, some of whom are doing great in Japan now. A bunch of us got signed to WWE. Um, I traveled with Kip Sabian, and we ended up, he was living round the corner from me for about a year and a half. And we didn't really know each other, but we were both kind of getting a bit down during the winter time and stuff. And like we traveled together a little bit. Then we ended up, going to the gym every single day for a year. We ended up becoming really good friends. And then he went off to AEW, and he's doing his stuff down there as well. Like it was really cool to be part of that group, I guess.
What led to WWE?
So there was a couple of options on the table at that time. Like I said, like I became like one of the busiest wrestlers on the independent scene,
Mm-hmm.
just through that thing of getting about. So like my name was getting mentioned in a bunch of places. And I was like, oh, this is quite cool. Like, you see, like, especially when you're starting out as well. This is another cool thing, I guess, we live in the social media world. It's when you see like your following starting to grow and like things starting to move on. So it's quite a funny story. Like, I'm seeing this. Like, I'm doing a bunch of these medium, like smaller promotions in the smaller towns and stuff. And like, I know there's Progress out there. I know there's ICW, and I've got a little bit of a history at Progress because I train there and stuff. So I'd always go and help out at the shows. So it actually came about where one of the shows I went to help out, and I was just putting up the shares. It was a progress show in Sheffield. In the end, it ended up being called Snowgrass, and the reason why it was called Snowgrass is because there was very inclement weather that day, and a bunch of top talent, many of who are signed to WWE, and it was like British Strong Style and like Mark Andrews, Flash Morgan. A lot of the progress stalwarts, a lot of them got stuck in the traffic. So I was out there helping out, just standard day off. I didn't have a booking that day, so I thought I'll go help out. It was just down the road from where I live. I was setting up the chairs, and I went to Sainsbury's to get a meal deal to get some lunch before the show started, right? And then I get a message from one of the owners saying that, oh, like a bunch of people are stuck. Do you have your gear? Do you want to come? Do you want to wrestle on the show? And again, one of the best things I learned is like you always bring your gear. So wherever you go, you bring your gear. So straight shot, didn't even think about it. Got my ass to the car, grabbed my gear bag, went straight to the venue. I was like, right, what is going on here? So we got put in like an 8 man. It was an 8 man. It wasn't a scramble. It was an 8 man scramble. It was like eight man elimination, right? So like an 8 man elimination scramble type match that we got put into, and it was the guys that got thrown into the match. And at that time, I guess it shows you the depth of talent. because a bunch of people didn't make it. I got onto the show in that match. Gabriel Kidd was on that show, who's just wrestled Will Ospreay in the main event at bloody Rev Pro and is killing it in Japan. And Saxon Huxley, who obviously got signed to WWE and he's doing great stuff in Noah. Like us three were the ones that were on the bench that just came to the show to watch or to help out that got put onto the show. And I realized like there's 8 people on this match. Like the only way I'm going to be able to get myself over and get recognized is through my entrance. So I just came out and just give it the most fat. Like it's that thing you're running on adrenaline because half an hour ago, probably about 2 hours ago, you weren't on the show. Now within 2 hours, you're waiting behind the curtain with your music playing. You've got to go. And I was just like, I'll never forget that day. It's just everything happened so fast. And I just went through it, and I just curtain open, music came out, and I just lost it. I just like went, and I was dancing all over the place to Punjabi, and I was just getting people involved, and like it wasn't. And I mean, it was probably after that or whatever where I just like I have a few bits. Everyone rehearses their entrances, and everyone does their shtick and their thing. But like I was just like, you know what? There's going to be a certain part of your entrance where you just go, especially as a babyface, where you just got to lose it. You just got to lose yourself within the crowd and get involved and like it was great. I did, I got that little entrance ended up like getting clipped out and like getting a little bit viral and stuff. And I was like, who's this new guy at Progress and stuff? So basically, it was off the back of that one of the owners at that time. Progress were already, I think they were already like recommending talent to WWE and stuff. So I got told after that to send Canyon Seaman, Canyon Seaman, who was talent relations at the time at NXT, to send me my CV and stuff. And I was in line for a potential tryout. And for me, that was like a huge moment. And I remember at that time, like my banking money had dried up, my the extra job that I was doing, all that money had dried up, and I was like an independent wrestler who was getting paid literally nothing. We're just surviving, right? Um, so yeah, that was like that little bit of hope, and I was told I think they said that we'll keep you in line for tryouts that they may be doing in Germany. I think it was at the time. So that was cool. I thought I'll go flies out to Germany. I'll get my WWE tryout. Let me just keep wrestling and keep getting in as best shape as I can, and like I've got a chance here. Um, and then like a couple of weeks went by, and yeah, we got an email saying that, and I was actually driving back from Butlin's camp show, and I got an email in my inbox, basically saying that we're looking to do this tournament, and we'd love for you to be involved, and something along those lines. And I couldn't believe it because I was just like, here I am preparing for a tryout. Now I'm being told that there's a big opportunity where I'm going to have a match and all this stuff. So yeah, it was crazy, and it was like crazy to keep it quiet. Me being having just been in wrestling for 2 years, it was crazy that I even got that email. And then like the word started getting around, and people started talking, and everyone was like, okay, well, like WWE are going to do this. At that time, they'd already done the first tournament, if you remember, the one that Tyler won at the end of 2016. So like we were all kind of like working towards being like, oh, WWE might do something in the UK. You never know, you might have a chance. But I always thought of myself as like, this is way out of my league because there's all these guys. But when they did that between the first tournament and getting that email, everything came along so fast for me that all of a sudden now I'm getting this email. And then like on the date sheets and stuff, there's like obviously the way wrestling goes, like there's names coming out and everyone's saying all the names that are expected to be said, and like stalwarts of these guys that are great guys that are hot on the scene, and no one's mentioning my name. And then we all got asked to come down to WWE, to Raw and SmackDown tapings at the O2 Arena, in London, same place where they ran Money in the Bank this past summer. So we all got asked to come down there, and like honestly, mate, I can remember like we stayed at the nice hotel. And I was so skint at the time that even though we had our expenses covered, I didn't have enough money in my bank account to pay for a train. So I actually got like a megabus, which is probably like the equivalent of like a Greyhound or something. Do you know, like the cheap ones? I paid like £15.
Mm-hmm.
So I got on the bus down the night before, and like I'm going by, like you can see the O2 Arena from the nice hotel that they keep them in. We're all staying at this hotel, and my heart started beating right there. I was just like, this is like, you get like imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like we went there. We ended up, staying over at the hotel. We had to check in the next day. And I just remember like my heart beating, and then they told us, "Oh, we're going to do some video stuff, so get in your gear and do all all the slow mo shots and stuff." And at that time, they'd not told us um, I think at that time they did tell us. I think yeah, it was for the tournament, I guess, or like for the potential of being in there in the tournament and stuff. So again, like my heart's beating throughout this. I'm sat in the dressing room with like there's like Trent Seven, Tyler Bate. There's a bunch of the Scottish guys, Matt Coffey, Joe Coffey, Wolfgang, all these guys that I've seen killing it on the Indies, and
Hmm.
I'm actually starstruck there. Um, in that small room with our guys. So we did that, and then like the main roster started coming in and stuff, and they had us doing like stand up pictures, like your full body shots. And I remember it's just like quite a silly funny story. I don't know why I was like pointing in the shot, and I just remember like seeing Baron Corbin walk past behind me, and he was just like, "Move your finger out of your face, kid. That's your money maker." Because obviously I had my hand there, and like I don't know what it was that I was doing, but like I was just like, wow, that's pretty cool. Like that's happened. I'm just getting all this exposure so quickly. Um, so yeah, and then like I remember the next day we ended up going in the ring whilst I was setting up SmackDown, and Robbie Brookside had us do a few drills and stuff at the time. Like I was at one point I was preparing for a tryout, and like I've never had a tryout for WWE because we just got picked up and signed from there. So we all got told that there was going to be a tournament, and we'll let you know if you're participating and everything. And again, like I said, I looked around the room and I was like, there was I think there might have been about 25 lads or 20 lads, and we knew that it was a 16-person tournament. So we knew that some of us weren't going to be able to be in the tournament. And I was just
Hmm.
like, all right, as one of the least experienced guys, I'm completely okay with not being in it because all of this is such a good experience for me, being so
Hmm.
new. And it was actually so we ended up watching SmackDown tapings and everything, and on the Megabus back home is when they uploaded the video on YouTube, and it was can't remember the lady. Yeah, it's Kathy Kelly. Kathy Kelly, the announcer. She listed out a bunch of the names that were going. It was like the first 8 names who were going to be part of the second UK tournament. So I clicked it on the bus. I just left. I clicked it on the bus. I started watching, and they said everyone's name, like Joe Connors, I think was on there, T-Bone, and like all these people. I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And I think I was at the end. I think I was the last one. And like she started saying my name, all of those slow mo shots that they took started, it came up on the screen and like a bit of my indie footage and stuff, and I was just like, holy, do you know what I mean? On the bus, home being like, wait, hold on, they picked me, and I'm in this tournament, and like, yeah, after that, like my fault, because now it became public, and my name became public where like, everyone was just like, you know, for a lot of those names, you see on social media, people go, oh yeah, deserved it, he's worked so hard, or he's been killing it recently in the scene. And for me, it was almost like everyone was like pleasantly surprised. Because they saw me coming up, and everyone saw that I was doing quite well. I was one of the busiest guys on the scene, but to like get into that position, like that's kind of like you're in the top 16 British talent, and the
Hmm.
WWE's just picked you to be part of this tournament. Like yeah, like my phone overheated and like the battery started draining because my phone just like it's never gone off like that, right?
Hmm.
Um, it's just like dopamine like overload. And I'm sat, but the funniest thing is I'm looking around and I'm sat on this mega bus and I'm looking around and like no one knows, right? And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, guys, I'm WWE, hello. Like, no one, like, I wasn't gonna do that, right? So I'm just sat quietly, like, there's a woman like looking after a kid who's crying on the side and stuff. So I'm just sat there, just scrolling through that to get my charger out and stuff. And like, yeah, it's indescribable to be honest with you that feeling because like you dream of these things. Do you know what I mean? When you're
Hmm.
young and like they're just left to be dreams and like obviously the way that my class went in terms of like not actually being part of wrestling up until so late and getting that like I ended up getting signed right after my 28th birthday and as someone who was so in his own head about like oh at 25 like how am I going to do this and how's like have I got enough time and all that stuff? And then I was just like, wow, like I've just turned 28 and I'm about to wrestle for WWE. Like I feel a lot better now about my own, development and like I feel like a little bit more in line with everyone else because I kind of fast tracked it. So yeah, no, like that's kind of how that went. But there's a few little fun little stories in there for you. Um, yeah, it's kind of nice for me to go back into it as well, just because it feels like such a long time ago. Um, so yeah, no, that's how we got to that point.
How was your time in NXT UK?
Like It was so many emotions. It was at times it was amazing. At times I couldn't believe that I was sat in a room with certain people. At times it was frustrating. And it's just as a podcast name, developmental is like I had to remember a lot of times because we're on TV every single week. For a product, sometimes even I had to be like, you are in developmental, you are a wrestler in development. Um, but like I always found it crazy how much the WWE gave me in terms of like opportunities on TV and opportunities to show off what I've got. Um, when it comes to like the way the system was, like I've got no complaints in terms of like the TV opportunities that I got. When they built the TC and we started going in there and training day in day out with like the health and conditioning coach, and we had some of the best coaches in the world, like Johnny Moss, James Mason. We'd have Shawn Michaels come over and give us, watch our matches back and give us feedback and stuff. So like the exposure you get into some of the best wrestlers in the world is just like it took me a while. It like I think I talked to a few talents as well, and it's like when you get signed to a big company. I don't know what it's like anywhere else. Obviously, I've only been signed to WWE in the past. It's like a 6 months to a year kind of, I don't know what to call it, like getting over the imposter syndrome. Do you know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just getting settled in and just realizing, yeah, no, this is. And it took me a little while for all of these people that like were around, like William Regal would always come over and talk to us and all that stuff, just to get used to trying to transition into these people that you've seen as a kid on TV to like, oh no, these are people that I work with that are my trainers and that are my mentors that are helping me get better in the ring and become better as a performer. Um, yeah, we got like a lot of opportunities at the start as well. And like before COVID, NXTUK was a touring brand, so we were NXTUK. We went to Glasgow, Blackpool, York, Hull, London, Cambridge. We went to Cardiff. We did, and then like there was a bunch of the takeovers as well. And it was great. I never got to be part of a takeover, and to be honest with you, I was never like a big name on the show. But within the division that we were in, the tag division, we wrestled every single tag team. We got opportunities for the tag team titles. I wrestled. JD McDonough was wrestling with Jordan Devlin at the time for the cruiserweight title. It was during the empty arena era, and I was just like, part of me was like, this would have been so cool if it was in a crowd full of people. But
Mm-hmm.
then the other side of me was, well, the world happened, right? COVID happened, and within that COVID period, one, I'm getting to wrestle, and two, I'm getting to wrestle for the WWE Cruiserweight Championship. Um, so yeah, like we were signed at such a crazy time in the world, right? COVID happened, and then when we came back to wrestling in front of no one at BT Sports Studios. Like it at the time it was so difficult and it was so nerve wracking, but I look back at it now and it was probably something that made us all such better performers because if you can have a good match in front of no one, you can
Mm-hmm.
have a good match in front of anyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, that 4 years, honestly, like the way the performance center was set up, like I said, I'd look around the PC, and the UK PC was very different to the US PC because the UK PC was full of wrestlers. Everyone who had done a little bit of wrestling before they'd come, we didn't have anyone, and that's no offense to anyone else. Like we didn't have anyone that came from a bodybuilding background that needed adjusting to like everyone was adjusting to the WWE style and all that stuff, but we were already well qualified, experienced wrestlers,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd look around the room sometimes. Sometimes we'd be stretching out before a training session, and there was two rings set up, and we had this big area, and there'd be another class there, and then there'd be another class of the girls at the gym and stuff, and you'd look around and like bloody hell, there's some wrestling, like there's some talent in this room. Um, so it was great to be in a room full of people that are so much better than you. Um, so yeah, like the probably one of the best moments is when we got to go out to WrestleMania as part of WrestleMania Access. It was myself and Kenny Williams. We went out to wrestle at it was the one in New York, WrestleMania in 2019. Kofi Mania, do you know that one?
Mm-hmm.
The one where yeah, exactly. So we got to like I we got we it wasn't planned. We only got told like 2 weeks before and again, it was the same thing, just like my career's gone. Like you just get the call, you should be right place at the right time. And like at the time in our tag team, we were we're getting over on like making cool vignettes and like interesting characters, and like we had like me and Kenny had like a nice um it was almost like Rush Hour, kind of like a Rush Hour odd couple partnership, and it was really cool. It was slowly starting to get over, and I think they realised that, oh, we should have these guys come out in New York and wrestle at Access as part of the tapings. That meant we got to go out and stay at like the same hotel as everyone, as all the
Hmm.
legends and stuff. And I was checking into the hotel in New York, and it was crazy for me because I'd lived a year in New York before working in banking, so it was really crazy for me to go back to New York having lived there for a year, but as a wrestler, as part of WWE, and we got to go to Takeover, and we got to go to WrestleMania as part of the as part of the talent and stuff, and like it was walking around backstage at WrestleMania at this big old stadium, like just watching legends just whiz by you, and I'm just like, and then the catering was set up in like a whole different area, and there's like 10 different types of meat, and there's like 15 different types of desserts, and I'm just like, this is class. And then one of the production guys that works with us like helped me out, and he goes, "Oh, you can stand right by hard cam if you want on the floor." So I went and like stood right on the floor, and I could just look up, and like literally I could see everyone up on the stadium, and like I was on the floor seats right by Harcam when it was a big pop when Kofi Kingston won the title off Daniel Bryan, and then when Batista came out all the way to like the triple threat at the end, and I remember that was like famously one of the longest manias of all time. I could barely stand at the end of it as well. But I had to stay out there. Like I think they had like some box seats for us up there, and they were behind. They were in like the press box, and
Hmm.
then the glass had like, it was like soundproof, and I couldn't do it. I was just like, this is, nah, I need to get down on the floor in front
Hmm.
of like, you know what I mean? And like feel it. It's almost like WrestleMania's kind of thing. You don't just watch, you gotta feel. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, because it's the energy in a room full of wrestling fans, and it's like the biggest show that anyone ever does with the most amount of people coming in. Yeah, like it's just stuff like that is like, I've realized like all of that stuff is stuff that you tell on stories, on interviews later on. You tell your grandkids when you get older and stuff. And so a lot of the difficult times that really frustrated me, really made me even at times like hate being there, even part of the process of making you stronger. And I feel like if you're a successful wrestler who's come through developmental, and you hear the stories of a lot of the wrestlers that have come through that system that are doing well now, they'll all have a period where like they felt super frustrated,
Hmm.
super annoyed, you know what I mean? And just like even at points of like just not wanting to be there at sometimes. And like it got like that after COVID when like things started slowing down. We weren't wrestling, we stopped touring. Um, we weren't wrestling as much as like we wanted, and like that's that part of like, that's the way that system was built. And that's part of like, developmental, where like there'll be so many people in a room, and there's only so many opportunities to give them. There's so many minutes on a TV show, right?
Hmm.
Um, so that was difficult, but again, like at the time, I hated it. I'll be honest with you. At the time, anxiety, just always, stressing out about what, if I'm good enough, what. And then I had my shoulder surgery as well, because I injured my shoulder too. So that kind of sets things back. But again, like if we were talking maybe a year ago, my response would have been a little bit different. But like it is that thing, like it takes time for things to settle in, and
Hmm.
very much like how a lot of stuff that Lance taught me kind of made sense in the years going by. A lot of the things that like I learned during my 4 year period at WWE. Um, a lot of that's just making sense now. A lot of those things that I almost feel like I was like professionally immature of dealing with back then. Excuse me. I'm a lot better prepared to deal with going forward because I went through all of that. Excuse me. So yeah, honestly, like it was one of the best experiences of my life, and is that thing I'll always get to. I was part of the first ever UKPC Performance Centre team. I was on the first set of tapings, and I was on the last set of tapings. I wrestled in a mask at the end. They had me doing crazy spots where I do stuff. Like there was a time where I was hidden underneath the ring in the little hornswoggle spot. Um, there was one of the matches where like I had to wear two masks underneath my existing mask, so that when Kenny took the mask off to reveal it was Amir Jordan, there'd be one underneath, and then he takes the other out. But it was kind of felt like a rib as well, because I had to wrestle with three masks, right? So I had like two little thin ski masks underneath, And then I had like my mask, and then like in the match, like one of the eyes covered up and stuff, and I was stressed out. Or what if he by accident takes both off instead of one because I was so thin and stuff, and like just performing under that kind of like, you realize like in order to become a character and in order to do this at WWE, like you've got to be prepared to do anything and be in any position. Um, so yeah, like honestly, it was great exposure, and there was people that would there'd be people in NXT, and there'd be a lot of the trainers and stuff, and I'd always get like really good positive messaging off. Like if I did something well, I'd always get like people people encouraging it and telling me that like, oh, you've got it, or you've got charisma, or like, oh, that your stuff looks good and your wrestling's good. And it's different coming from someone at WWE when it is someone that's actually gone and made it. If Shawn Michaels or Matt Bloom or Regal are calling you and telling you that you're doing a good job and stuff, like it really does give you a lot of confidence, and it does make you feel like a superstar.
Hmm.
Because like, and then like it is those things that like kind of builds you up and builds your confidence, and yeah, like 4 years, great experience. Ask me the same question a week after we got released, I'll probably give you a different answer. But that's the magic, and that's the process of life, and like learning as you're going and stuff, right?
Hmm.
Um, so yeah,
How
that's kind
has
of.
Go ahead.
No, no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say, how has everything been since your release?
Obviously, we got the release. We got released in August of last year, so we're in December now. So it's been about 14 months. I was lucky because I'd always kept good relations with a lot of the promotions that I was working with before I went to the WWE. Because I wasn't on the Indies for so long before I went to WWE, I still felt like I had a lot of equity and to build on the independents as well. So it was great. Like it was in a way it was weird. It was kind of like I don't know if I'd say it was freeing, but it was kind of like an end of a chapter, right? Because like it was a strange thing. Like the show ended, and we didn't like. I don't feel like any of the talent that got let go got let go because of their performance. It
Hmm.
was literally because like they discontinued the show. Um, so like it was really easy for, like I said, I'm the type of person that has to go go go. So like the second I got that phone call, the one thing that I did know was, okay, now I'm free and independent to do whatever I want, and that's one of the things that I found quite frustrating. And anyone will find it frustrating who's in wrestling and they're under a contract and they may not be getting used as much, or they may be on a schedule where they're not wrestling every week. That was the one thing that was starting to kind of like weigh on my mind and kind of like annoy me a little bit. And it was kind of weird. Like all of a sudden, that thing went away, and
Hmm.
I'm free to do whatever it is that I want. So I can do interviews, podcasts. I can take whatever bookings I want. So it was crazy because it was like, all right, my destiny's back in my own hands now after you know, having the last 4 or 5 years, especially so much of it being as part of the WWE. So I kind of dove myself straight back into the independent scene. Um, it's been one of the best periods. Like up until like from like August, September of last year to like June, July, I guess that nearly that 1 year period, I got to go back to all the independent shows that I'd not gotten to do for 4 years. I got to like get back to traveling on the road. We There was a new promotion by the name of 1PW that gave us a bunch of like, it's not running anymore, but like it was cool. I got to get like a bunch more publicity through that and get my name out on the independent scene after that. It was crazy. Like one of my favorite matches, I got to wrestle Lance Archer on one of those big shows, and that was a really good learning experience because you're wrestling like a big intense guy,
Hmm.
and like working someone of that caliber of that size as well is like a really good learning experience. Um, so like, I still look at myself as a wrestler in development. Um, and like I've tasted that one environment of developmental within the WWE, but there's also another area where like a place where you can develop as a wrestler, and that's on the independent shows, big or small, and like different areas. And like one of the best things I like about wrestling is you can be wrestling. Like this past weekend, I wrestled in Hull for this company called NGW, and they ran an arena show that drew over 1,000 people, and that was amazing.
Hmm.
And then I went across to the other coast, which is not that far because England's only like quite small. But I went to Blackpool and I wrestled in a pub in front of about 60 or 70 people. And they were both equally as fun. Like I love being an independent wrestler and traveling around and stuff. So like, that was good. And I think earlier at the start of this year, I got to a point where I thought, okay, what's my next step? What is it that I need to do? And it's that same thing. Like if I'm not happy somewhere, I'll always do something to change it. Again, part of the thing that I found quite frustrating whilst being under contract was it was something that I feel like looking back, I know whilst there's things that I feel like I could have done more, I just wish I had like I always wanted to have like my own skill. Like I wanted to wrestle every single week, and if I wasn't as a professional wrestler, I just feel anxious. I feel like it's a big problem for me if things are out of my control. But now that they are in my control again, I was like, okay, how else can I get my name out there? And I wanted to come to America, but the American visa is notoriously difficult to get if you go in independently. So it was after doing a little bit of research and asking around a few other people that had gone to Canada, and I realised that as a performing artist, being part of the Commonwealth, you can wrestle in Canada as a British wrestler. So I thought, okay, let me try that. So it was this past summer, from July to October, I did like a Canadian tour, and I wrestled in about out of the six main provinces, I wrestled in five. Quebec's the only one that I missed out, and I nearly got that one. They messaged me the day 2 days after I was flying. Um, so yeah, like it was cool to have done all of that stuff, have that WWE experience behind me, do a little bit on indies, and come back and do this 3 months. I was wrestling every single week. Um, I went out with one booking and one hotel room to stay in. I've got some family in Toronto. I've got some friends on the other side in Calgary from my days at Lancers. And yeah, I just got on social media. I just got utilized my contacts. I was like, right, let me see if I can actually build myself a schedule, like a full-time schedule out in Canada. Obviously, because NXTUK finished and COVID happened and everything, like there wasn't as much wrestling, there wasn't as much frequency of wrestling in the UK, and that's what was kind of frustrating me. And again, I was just like, okay, I'll do something about it. So yeah, that 3 months in Canada was amazing. I got to travel all around the country, so I really like to travel and like see new places as well. And it was kind of like living life. It was like the closest thing to a rock star's life you could get.
Hmm.
There was nights that I spent in really nice hotels that promotions put me up in, and then there was other nights where I didn't have accommodation, and if I had like a bus to catch the next morning, I stayed over at at the gym. Like I slept on the massage chair for a few hours and just got my ass up. I had a shower at the gym and just got on the bus to the next town or whatever. And it was fun. Did it all completely by myself.
Hmm.
But it's crazy. You get yourself out there and like you realize like you find other people on similar journeys that you as you are, and then you realize that like you're not alone. And like I spent 3 months by myself in Canada, but I made so many friends, I made so many connections, and like I plan on going back next year as well, next summer hopefully. Um, and one of the best summers of my life. And like that was another thing that was so vital in my development because I needed something after obviously finishing up with NXT UK. Like I just feel like I needed something to like get my name out there, get more experience, and like kind of go to a new territory. Like in the old days, they'd have like a territory system.
Hmm.
And like the globe's so small now, like for us, going to a new territory is like going to America or going to Canada and introducing yourself as a fresh product over there and getting yourself over in front of crowds. And it was so much fun because I was turning up to shows where my entrance music would play, and I'd come out there and people wouldn't know who I was necessarily everywhere. But then it was cool for me because by the end of it, I could get myself over from my wrestling, from my match, and all that stuff. So like that was a new challenge there
Hmm.
to take as well, and it helped build my confidence so much as a wrestler in the new market and stuff. Like I'm still on the come down to be honest. I came back at the end of October. It's nearly been 6 weeks, 6 or 7 weeks, and like it was just such. I wrestled on my first day when I got there. I wrestled on my last day when I got out. And in between, I was like taking a lot of training sessions at the local school as well, and like I was sustaining myself financially on the road, away from my wife and stuff. And it was that little taste of like this would be really cool if I was under contract and I could do independence, or like if I was on the road with the WWE.
Hmm.
It's kind of like it gives you it gives you that motivation. Public transport in Canada is in North America is horrible if you don't have a car as well. So I experienced that life as well. Yeah, yeah. I was taking buses and trains don't exist. I had some cheap flights that I managed to book, But yeah, it's crazy in America, isn't it?
Hmm.
Um, Public transport wise, I walked a lot. I walked a lot. Um, Full blown sugar addiction as well. There's so much more sugar in all the food
Oh
over
yeah.
there as well. So many more calories, but it was good for the bulk. It was good for the size. But yeah, like it's been great. It was a really good experience for me.
I'm glad that your experience through WWE didn't necessarily define who you were, and you're still successful after that. Because a lot of people, that's the be all end all, and they walk away or they can't um, get over that specific part of their career. But you're still busy, you're still grinding, you're still chasing that dream, and that's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. I mean, it's and you know one of the things that made it difficult. Like we all got signed as a group, but like when we got released, there was like 25 wrestlers that got released out in the wilderness on the independent scene to go out
Hmm.
and like try and fend for themselves. So like it was, that's not easy to like find your way into a good spot and stuff. And like it's been a challenge. It's 100%. It's been a challenge. I've had times where it's frustrated me massively. I've had times where I felt like quitting. I'd be lying if I said that there wasn't times where I felt like quitting when I was at NXT UK in developmental. And again, I'll say it like everyone, like I feel like everyone goes through that time. I've heard a
Hmm.
lot of stories of a lot of wrestlers, and I've spoken to a lot of wrestlers that are doing really well now that they had their times where they were on the verge of quitting. And I guess one thing throughout this whole process I've realized is like you will make it if you don't quit. Nothing, no success or no failure defines you because this is professional wrestling. It's like one of the great quotes that I heard whilst I was in at WWE was from Shawn Michaels, where he said like the sun's gonna rise the next day, you will have the next match,
Hmm.
and like as long as the way I look at it is as long as there's a next match, there's hope and there's a career. Do you know what I mean? And like
Hmm.
it is, navigating the independent scene, especially these days, and this it's difficult, man. It's we're in show business. It's show business, so it works just like show business works. So everything that you hear that happens and goes on in movies or stand-up comedy or music, all that same stuff happens in wrestling, and like you've got to learn to navigate and find a way of succeeding within these, crazy boundaries sometimes. And just back yourself and work hard. And like one thing that I really like, yeah, again, it's that one thing that it instilled in me that is to like never quit.
Hmm.
And I almost feel like you have to get to the point of nearly quitting and not quitting to know that. Do you know what I mean? Or like
Hmm.
I realized that like I had to go through all of those frustrating, difficult times. It's like when you get released from like there is obviously as positive as a spin you can put on it, there is a feeling of rejection when someone gives you a call and tells you, oh, you know, we no longer need your services. Natural home human reaction. It's all about how you respond to it. So it's definitely been a test. It's definitely been a really difficult test. One of the first things that I did when I got released was try to figure out how I could do another job. And this is off away from wrestling part of a wrestler's life that we all have to consider is paying
Hmm.
the bills and all that stuff. One of the first things that I thought, well, I'll go back to work and I'm well qualified and I've got some work experience, but I realised that like that might get in the way of wrestling and I needed something flexible. So, I got on my phone and I just applied to be a like Uber delivery driver. So like I did that before I went to Canada. I did that for a year and it was great. Like, it was crazy after spending 4 years at WWE, after being a professional banker and stuff, to go back and do something like this. But I realized that this will mean that I can work flexibly, I can
Hmm.
make money on the side, I can stay sane during the week, and then I can still keep this wrestling dream alive. Um, so like a lot of these things have just taught me how to like work and survive while still keeping this dream alive and stuff. The trip to Canada, I was kind of by myself and I had to work out accommodation on the fly and there was a few nights where I didn't know where I was staying and all that. I was like sleeping at the airport and all that stuff. You go through that.
Hmm.
It's like a stress test, right? You're like stretching yourself out like that and then like, that's the further you stretch yourself out, the further in that out of your comfort zone you go, the more beneficial it is. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, so like, sat here right now, I'm very thankful for all of the experiences that I had. And like, yeah, I came back from Canada. I went and I actually went down to Windsor to train at Border City Wrestling, which is run by Scott Demore at Impact Wrestling. So like I did a little bit of training there whilst I was out in Canada. And then when I came back, it was cool because TNA Impact Wrestling were going to be TNA as of next year. They did a UK tour recently. They did 4 dates. And when I came back from Canada, I got onto one of those dates. I got to wrestle Rich Swann on the house show that they did in Coventry in the UK. So, that was really cool as well. That was almost like a little bonus, and it kind of like made the Canada trip worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it's got like, it's crazy. Like, I'm still like, it's been a month or so, but like I said, I'm still kind of recovering from that experience. It's because of part of what it led to as well. It was just like, okay, like, I don't know what's in my future or not, but now I can sit there and say that I wrestled for WWE and for Impact
Mm-hmm.
on their UK tour and stuff like that. It was really, it kind of made that Canada investment in that Canada trip kind of worthwhile. Because I
Mm-hmm.
went out there, I got onto like all the big shows out there, and there's so many good promotions out in Canada. Like there was like C4 Wrestling, Smash Wrestling. There's one out in Vancouver called Nation Extreme Wrestling. Um, so much good talent out there as well. Like there's a bunch of like guys building up out there that I didn't get a chance to work with this time around that I'd love to wrestle next year as well. Um, and then like it, it's just all of those things kind of building up to where I am right now, and it is that same. I'm 33 years old. My wife keeps telling me as well. She keeps telling me like the way wrestlers go, like that phone's gonna ring. That phone's gonna ring at some point. You'll get an opportunity at some point. So like for me, it is just that thing of like keep yourself in shape, keep wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
keep working on getting your reactions, keep getting yourself over because like again, I'm a developing wrestler who's working on my craft, and like it is that thing. You'll make it if you don't quit. So like I'm hoping next year there's something down the line, but to be honest, sat here right now, like it's been a ridiculous ride. It's kind of weird, just like I feel like it's been a therapy session for me. Just sat there and listen to myself patiently
No,
talk.
no, no.
But like to kind of like talk about the whole thing as a whole, it's crazy. Like I started in 2016, and we're about to go into 2014. I've been doing this for 8 years, and like I am like I get told that I don't like, and again, it's part of being a developing wrestler. I don't like back myself enough. I should have more confidence in myself. But like when I lay it out, like like we've talked about here, it's just like, all right, you've done some pretty cool stuff. So yeah, it's a pretty cool. It's been a pretty crazy ride.
I couldn't agree
Yeah.
more. Where can people reach out to you at?
So I'm on Twitter, Instagram. I am Amir Jordan. I have a big cartel. It's amirjordan.bigcartel.com. Watch this space next year. I'm getting myself into pro wrestling tees as well, so that store will be up and running as well. But yeah, like I'm always posting up where my next dates are and stuff on my social media. I'm very active on Twitter and Instagram. Always put like my highlight reels and all that stuff in
Mm-hmm.
wherever I'm going to be. So like the best place to support me is, you know, come meet me at the merchandise desk on shows, but the best place to support is just, give me a follow on social media and like just support our stuff. Like we're all part of this crazy journey
Mm-hmm.
here, in an ever changing world as well. So, I always look at it as like the more, the worst day in wrestling is better than the best day doing anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, like I'm just extending the days out, just trying to stretch this thing out as much as you can. Just clinging on to it. So yeah, no, absolutely, it's been great.
I just want to say thank you for taking the time out to come on. Thank you for what you've done for professional wrestling and what you continue to do. If there's anything I can ever do, please feel free to reach out and let me know.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. You've let me go on a lot on this
Oh,
podcast. I've talked a lot, haven't I? It's been really nice. No, thank you. It's been great. It's been great for me to come on here and talk about it as well because it helps. The more you talk about these things, the more it helps. Like let it settle in your head and make all of these crazy experiences like actually come down to reality and be like, no, I have done all of these things and like spur you on. So like I love doing these things and talking to people like this. It's awesome.
well, let's do it again sometime.
Absolutely, no, 100%.